Welcome to The Thriving Mama, the podcast that teaches you not just how to survive, but to thrive in motherhood. I'm your host, Dr. Stephanie Davis. Have you ever looked in the mirror and thought, I don't recognize the person staring back at me? I have, and I know hundreds, if not thousands, of women at this point, from the moms I work with to my friends and women in my community, have said this very statement. And I feel like it's coming up quite a bit. Recently, there's a lot going on in our world, and I think it's causing people to reflect. And so I feel like it's a very timely talk. Somewhere between getting married and having kids, our lives change and our identity and life's passions often get lost, I should say. It's a normal part of maturing and, just becoming the next version of who we are. But I find that moms really do lose their sense of self and their sense of identity. And that's difficult because when those feelings arise, it can create a lot of inner turmoil and grief and lots of feelings that we need to acknowledge and deal with. So this is exactly what we are going to tackle today. In this episode, we'll discuss the pros and cons of how we lose ourselves through life transitions, what it means to grow and mature as an individual within a family, and how to find ourselves again, grow, and feel fulfilled. Want to chat and get more personalized support? I'm offering podcast listeners a free 20-minute Thriving Mama check-in where we'll evaluate your physical, mental, and emotional health and provide useful resources to help you on your journey. You'll find that link in the show notes. So one of the reasons I started the Thriving Mama program was that with almost 2 decades of practice, I've watched so many moms just treading water in the middle of the hurricane, doing everything they can to stay afloat, but not really living or thriving. They're just surviving. They all love their families with every fiber of their being, but they would never put all of that love and effort into themselves for various reasons. And that's something that I deeply address in the Thriving Mama program and the women who are in my community. That's something that we talk about a lot. All of those, reasons, addressing them and then getting them, back on track. I've heard so many of them say, when I look in the mirror, I don't recognize the person staring back at me, or I don't know who I am anymore. The passion is gone, their light is out because they're in survival mode. And this totally makes sense because when you're in survival mode, you aren't really willing or able to think about what inspires you or stokes the flames of your passion or who you really are and what you want to be. But when you get beyond that issue, like all of the amazing moms that I have worked with have done, your nervous system finally calms down and your consciousness opens up to possibilities, what could be and who you really are. So that's something that we work on quite a bit. And as we work on things in the practice, whether people are in a Thriving Mama program or if they are just working on functional medicine or on the emotional trauma work, we talk about these things because regardless of the context that I'm seeing people, these things still come up. If you have chronic illness, all of these factors still come up. Or if you're coming to see me specifically for trauma, these factors still come up. So let's start talking about why we, kind of lose ourselves during those life transitions. It's really, really easy. It's like, for most of us, 20 some odd years of our lives, 30 some odd years of our lives, we're an individual. And then you get engaged and then you become a partner, not quite the, the partner that's in a marriage, but you become partnered and you're with another person and you have to figure out who you are with that person. And then you get married and then that's a contract and you have to, navigate that as well. And that often isn't as difficult because you're still an individual and you're in the context of your relationship as well. It's much easier to kind of maintain your you-ness in those situations. But then when you have a baby, things change. It changes because there's something that, for most of us, when we become mothers, the person who you've carried for months in your body, that's a part of you that stays with you forever. And it's hard sometimes for moms to, kind of separate themselves, kind of physically and emotionally from their kids because we care so much and we love them so much. And I completely get that. And it's something I've worked through, especially with my younger one. I think it's hard when you have had multiple kids and you've got your youngest one and you're like, oh, it's my last baby. Sometimes that's really, really hard. And it can be the same for people who only have one. It's that same feeling of, this is my baby. But it's really, really important that we find and maintain, remember who we are. And so during this process, we have to consider what the pros and the cons are. Cons are the obvious. We don't know who we are anymore. You wake up and through all of these many years, you don't recognize, you don't remember who you are but also the things that mattered to you when you were younger might not matter to you anymore. So that's something to consider. You feel a lot more stress in your life because you're responsible for another human being or multiple other human beings. The world is also growing and evolving around us. And a lot of times we get stuck in this stagnant place where, our kids are growing, life is happening, and we're just kind of in the same situation that we've always been in. We're not really growing and evolving with the world around us, even though it might sometimes feel like it, sometimes it might feel like, oh, you've changed your clothes, you've changed your hair, you've done something like that. But inside where it really matters, have you really changed? Have you, accessed your feelings? And, do you really understand who you are at this moment in time? And so the pros of that situation, though, gives us an opportunity to reevaluate ourselves and rediscover, who we are, because through all of this, that's how we change and we grow. And it's completely normal to shed parts of ourselves. You think about what's working for you now, what doesn't work for you right now. Have conversations with your friends. That's something I've been having a lot of lately. Earlier I had mentioned this is something that's been coming into my consciousness very much recently. And it's talking to friends and thinking, we're talking out loud about who we used to be. A lot of us used to just, we did a lot of things that we don't do now, and that's okay. There's different seasons of life, and it's important to acknowledge that and just, evaluate just what works, what doesn't work, and keep what works and let go of what doesn't. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later. The next thing to do is you have to consider who you are as an individual and within the context of your family. So one thing I always tell moms is that it's super important for kids to see you care for yourself and value yourself and prioritize yourself. Because if you are doing that, you're showing them that that's what they should be doing, and it's okay to do that. And so often in this world, we don't. We're just going through the motions, struggling and trying to get through the day. And I know I've been there, and I know most moms have been there trying to figure all of this out. And just, trudging through day by day. So it's really important that you, just check in with yourself. I would say daily, but if that's not a possibility for you, maybe weekly or monthly, and say, am I serving myself? Do I know what excites me? Am I doing things to grow? All of those things, so that then your kids see you doing this and they are modeled that and they understand that that's something that's important to do. There's actually studies that show, even moms working outside of the house, that a lot of times those kiddos actually are harder workers because they saw how hard their mom worked. So it's really, really interesting how that, it makes a lot of sense that, that's kind of how the world works, where we have mirror neurons, and what we're modeled and what we see, we usually take in. If you're married or you have a partner, it's important for that person to acknowledge your needs and your growth and have conversations about that. That this lack of communication is one of the biggest issues in relationships. And I know we get, again, kind of caught up in the day-to-day of life, but it's really important to check in with that other person and communicate what's working for you in this season, what's not working for you, and also encourage them to do the same. Let them have their outlets for growth and let them discover who they are and, grow together. It's very, very possible to grow together. I think a lot of times we see people grow apart, but if you're conscious and intentional and communicative, it's very easy to grow together. And the last thing, in that section is, recognize that not everyone in a family has to be the same and like the same things. And, everyone is an individual, and celebrate that and acknowledge that and make space for it. Because I know, like, growing up in my family, it was like you're kind of expected to like the same things and like the same sports teams and, all of that. And it was just like the adults liked it. So the kids were kind of forced to like it. And if you didn't, that wasn't such a great thing. So that was something that I'm very cognizant of is, understanding that my kids' needs and personalities are different than mine. And that's great. And that should be celebrated. And the same with my husband. He definitely has different interests than I do. And that's great. And I like that he has the ability to go, express those parts of himself and get that, get his cup filled that way. So let's talk about the hard part. That's finding yourself again and growing and feeling fulfilled. It's easier said than done. It's the first thing I usually have women do when I'm working with them is sit down with yourself and think about the old you or past you and thank her for everything she's done for you. But tell her it's time to move on and grow and evolve. And just sit there and think about what used to light you up. What parts of your life and parts of you do you want to keep? What's not serving you now? I would, first of all, write this all down, put it in a journal. That's one of the best places to do it. So you can keep a record of it, and it will change. It will change as seasons change and you evolve. And that's totally okay. But it's important to be mindful of it. Also talk to your friends or whoever your close confidants are and those who know you really well. I would have that dialogue because your friends and those who know you really well will reflect things back to you that you might not be seeing or remind you of things that you might not have thought of and just give you a little bit different perspective on it and give you some things to think about. I was just actually having a conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and we were talking about this. And we were also talking about how we live so much of our lives in the masculine, like driving and pushing and just going through instead of being in the feminine, and that there's a role for, having the soft, nurturing sides of us and also having the driver's side of us. It's important that we, accept that because we all, male and female, have masculine and feminine within us. But it's important that they live in balance, and that balance changes as you grow too. And it's important also to acknowledge that in your family setting, like what are you giving to, your family members and what are they giving back to you? Because again, that's going to kind of fuel your fire and fuel your passions. And, it helps build your sense of identity when you're getting acknowledged for, who you are and what you're bringing to the table. So that's the first part. Second part is find your current inspiration. That's something so often when I ask women, like, what drives you? What motivates you? What lights your fire? They don't know. Like, they have no idea. They're like, well, I think I might want to garden, or I might want to write a book or start a business or open an in-home daycare, whatever it is. So often they don't really know what it is. And often when they sit with it for a while, they figure it out. But that's once they've cleared the emotional space to have the bandwidth to do this. Because when you are stressed out, that shuts down your prefrontal cortex and you don't have the bandwidth to be inspired or be creative. And it really saps your happiness and your energy. So one thing I like to tell moms is the dictionary defines inspiration as the process of being mentally stimulated to do or feel something especially something creative. Interestingly, though, but not by coincidence, in my opinion, is inspiration is also the act of drawing in breath. And what's interesting about that, obviously inspiring, inhaling, it fuels us. Like, our air is our life, kind of life energy, but it also air fuels fire, which ignites your passion. So there's definitely something to that. So, I tell people to consider, the fact that when you think about it, if you're inspired, you're breathing new life into something or someone, like an idea. So I want you to consider, all of this through the lens of inspiration. What inspires you? What is fueling your passion? What makes you feel joy and excitement? When you're not wearing all of the many, many hats you wear on a daily basis, who are you and who do you want to be? I really encourage you to take a good, quiet moment to contemplate this and write it down. Again, put it in a journal, because this is going to be an ever evolving process. I always do audits and I check my journal to see where I am now, where I was, and where I want to go. Because it's a journey. There's not a finish line to this. And the next piece is sharing it with your friends and family. When you speak these words and you speak it into existence, you are putting it out there for all to, kind of celebrate with you. And it's, you know what? Don't worry about other people, what they think. If they don't like what you're doing or they have judgment, that's on them. That's not on you. You need to do you and what, kind of inspires you. So I would definitely find something that you're feeling really passionate about. And, it could be learning a new skill. It could be taking cooking classes. It could be gardening. It could be hiking up, a 14er, like here in Colorado. That's on a lot of people's bucket lists. But do it, just do it and say it out loud. Tell people around you, have a team to support you, your cheerleaders, and have a word. I always tell people to have a kind of like a cheer word or your kind of positive word. I've heard people say things like, one woman, I heard her say sunshine. It was interesting because she's like, the sun gives life to everything. And I just feel so happy when I'm out in the sunshine and I think about sunshine. So something along those lines that makes you feel very happy and energetic and kind of puts you in that zone. And the last thing is, and really, really important, make sure you're prioritizing this in your life, understanding who you are, letting go of the past versions of yourself and shedding that, but also being thankful and grateful for those moments in your life and those past versions of yourself. That's a very important piece, is to remember where you came from as well. And just acknowledge that and have gratitude for it. But making sure that you're, prioritizing yourself, and in this journey and this evolution of, always like kind of rediscovering who yourself. I mean, if you think about it, it actually is a really exciting journey if you allow it to be. I'm different than yesterday. I'm definitely different than a year ago. Very, very different from 5-10 years ago. And I find that really exciting. And if you're not finding your life exciting, I would encourage you to sit down and consider the reasons why, and then how you can address those so that you are feeling kind of happy and fulfilled again. And I just want to leave you with this, because it makes me really sad how many women don't feel seen, heard, and appreciated. So these are my parting words for you. You are amazing. I love you and I see you. You are worthy of everything your heart desires, especially love, kindness, respect, and abundance, whatever it is that you want. You are very important to so many people in this world, and probably people that you're not even aware of. So remember that. And most importantly, you are loved again by so many people. If you made it this far, I truly appreciate you. Remember, knowledge is just the beginning. Taking action is what truly sparks change. If you're overwhelmed and don't have enough energy to make it through the day, I invite you to book a free 20-minute coaching call with me. It's a no-obligation chat where we can discuss your health goals and how I might be able to help you achieve them. Visit the link in the episode description to book that call. Until next time, keep striving for wellness, and remember, you have the power to not just survive, but thrive in motherhood.